Is Lane Kiffin the most likely candidate for the Florida job?
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, transfer portal, and coaching scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are brought to you by FanDuel. With a $5 bet winner, you can get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app for new customers. Check out FanDuel.com today. Here's the deal. The Florida job sets the trend, and it looks like the Lane Kiffin stuff is not going to go away. Yeah, they're going to swing for Eli Drinkwitz. I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Day got a phone call, or Kalen DeBoer, Marcus Freeman, all those people. But Lane Kiffin is the one that probably has the most burn right now. Is that real? Is it worthwhile? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about my tier one list, the guys you've got to call if you do have a coaching opening. And then finally, just top candidates for a few jobs that I think are going to come open. I might get to that a little bit as well, just for some fun. But today's show is primarily about UF Lane Kiffin. Here are my thoughts. Growing up, Steve Spurrier changed the Florida program. He's one of only two coaches that's ever truly been consistently successful at that school. It's true. Him and Urban Meyer. And that guy could throw it around. He was confident. He was cocky. He backed it up. Kiffin is not Steve Spurrier. I'm not saying that he is, but they do throw it around. He's a funny guy. He's got a lot of personality. Perhaps he could be the person that ends up, for lack of a better term, turning Florida back in the right direction. Is it going to be a guarantee? No. Here are the problems. Even though they lost to Georgia on Saturday, there's still a good chance that the Rebels end up playing in the playoff. The Gators need a coach early December. How would that work? He's not going to give up a chance to go to the playoff. That's not realistic. Either is Marcus Freeman, etc. Would the University of Florida, this is the biggest question for any school, really, would the University of Florida be willing to wait until after the portal is open and closes and not have a head coach? Because those kinds of schools, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama, Ole Miss, if their coach is leaving, they're going to move on. They're not going to allow them to coach and go to Florida. They're not going to allow them to coach and play. How does that work for UF? I want to know. And this is the same problem for every school. National Signing Day is the very first Wednesday in December. They have 19 commitments at the University of Florida. Most of those kids would prefer to stay with the Gators, but they also want a definitive answer publicly, not just, hey, we're going to get this guy. They want to know who the next head coach is going to be. And they're going to want to get to know them, not occasionally send them a text while they're at another school. And in Kiffin's case, Ole Miss. How does that work? How would he try to manage the roster to keep players at the University of Florida from entering the portal? How would he do any of that? How would he hire a staff? The playoff era is very challenging for schools that make coaching changes. And I don't see a silver lining, although I wish there was, because every now and then a guy just retires, goes to the NFL, something like that. It's not even the school's fault, and they end up with a really awkward spot. Now, Florida hired the wrong guy. It didn't work out with Napier. Fair enough. But this is going to be a challenge. With that said, in some way, shape, or form, here are the coaches that I think they should look at. Again, call Marcus Freeman, Eli Drinkwitz, call Kalen DeBoer. All these people, like through the back channels, their agents, etc. You call all these people. What do you have to lose? But I also have a few other names that I think are very, very important. Number one, I don't know how you couldn't like the idea based on Steve Spurrier and the history throwing it around. Florida fans like passing offense. How about Jeff Brom at Louisville? Yeah, that's his alma mater, but he recruits the state of Florida hard. Excellent wide receiver / offensive mind / quarterback coach / passing game / catching you off guard. He slaughtered Miami the other night. They ran a whole bunch of stuff Miami didn't know was coming. One of their defensive backs even talked about it. Could you imagine what Jeff Brom would do with talent that the University of Florida could get? No offense to Louisville, but it's not similar. You wouldn't be worrying about the portal as much. You might go get you 10 kids a year, but it's not going to be the 30 that Louisville does because they just can't get the elite recruits that Florida does, at least not consistently. Could you imagine what Jeff Brom would do there? I think that's another coaching possibility for them. You at least got to make that call. Obviously, Jed Fish, he's a Florida alum. His wife went to Florida. He's now the head coach at Washington. He's a Gator fan. That's the low-hanging fruit. That's a phone call that in some capacity is going to be made. I don't know if the Bull Gator Club, which rightly or wrongly is going to dictate some of this, if not a lot of it, would be interested, but that's got to be a phone call. And then the other one, I know he's an alum again, but Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. He's young, very good at putting a roster together. That's another school, like, they don't have the NIL resources there. If he's tired of that, maybe he would be your guy. He would do wonders at UF. You put that kind of charismatic person in front of young people, the University of Florida, the SEC logo, the swamp. The University of Florida would do quite well with Kenny Dillingham. Those are the few that I can think of off the top of my head that would be kind of top of the board for them. And there's a couple others too. Let's not forget that college football is about personality fits. It's about up-and-comers, and it's about people wanting the challenge. UF is a very challenging place because of the expectations. It should be. Alex Golish, I wouldn't throw out completely. I know he's a G5 guy or G6 now, but he's a really good coach. I don't think Florida fans should automatically dismiss him. He's at USF. Obviously, they beat Florida this year. He's a guy. And also, Matt Campbell. The only question I have about Matt is the same one that I have about Golish. How would he recruit at the level Florida does? Campbell, of course, is the Iowa State head coach. Those are the people in particular that I think are really, really important to keep in mind. There are going to be others. You may take a swing at Mike Elko. You may take a swing at somebody else, and I don't even know why they would look at. Fran Brown's another one. All of these are possibilities, but if you're a Gators fan or a Gator hater, don't think that the list is like one or two people that eventually get contacted. It just might be two or three that they really want. Very few lateral moves are made in college football. For instance, Ryan Day is probably not going to take another job in the sport. Kirby Smart's not. Kalen DeBoer's probably not. But you have to make those kinds of people say no with most jobs. Again, Kirby's never going to coach Florida, but just using that as an example. Make Marcus Freeman say no. If it doesn't hurt UF's administration. Why not? Same thing across the board. Dan Lanning, hey, if you want to make a phone call, he's coached at Bama. He's coached at Georgia. He would have an idea of what it's like at Florida. That's another one I could just throw in off the top of my head. Make them say no. Flat out. With that in mind, how fast do you think the Florida coaching search needs to end? I'm going to talk about that next right here on the Portal Podcast. And that's probably going to determine whether or not Florida has an opportunity to quickly turn this around. Because if it's not a quick hire, this could get pretty dicey. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL season is in full swing. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's really exciting. And FanDuel has an opportunity for you. If you are a new customer, you can bet $5, and if it wins, $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Doesn't matter if it's something as simple as just a basic point spread on a game, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, whatever one you want. It could be a player prop. It could be a parlay. It could be who wins the division, who wins the Super Bowl, league MVP, anything you want with FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com. We're also brought to you by Quo. Quo is the same company that you've heard me talk about before, Open Phone. It's the same great business system that it's always been, but again, it's just named Quo now. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the number one business system in the industry. It's going to help you make sure you don't miss any customer calls, get back to your leads, and not lose financial opportunities. And above all else, there's all kinds of different things with it. It's even got an AI agent that's a game changer. You can use a little bit of everything with Quo to make you more money. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, and you can get 20% off your first 6 months at Quo.com quo.com/LockedOnCollege. That's quo.com/LockedOnCollege. Quote, no missed calls and no missed assignments. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast a part of your day each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst, giving you my takes today on the Florida job and how it kind of sets the market. Here's the deal. The coaching search, there are different tiers to it. I think Florida and Penn State are the obvious big names that have opened up so far. You can have your own discussion on which one's the better job, depends on the fit. Maybe for Matt Campbell, it's better for Penn State. He's my vote to go there. But if you're Florida, you still got to call his agent and see what he thinks. And to that end, I think the Florida job is going to impact every other job, not just the head coach, the recruiting coordinator, the offensive coordinator, all that stuff all comes into play. So keep that in mind. And they have a lot of money. They're going to set the trend more than likely. But that brings up the biggest question. Again, as I talked about in the first segment, timing. If they don't get this done quickly, because maybe they're just hell-bent on hiring Marcus Freeman, and Notre Dame's probably going to be in the playoff or at least going to be close down to the wire. If they can't hire somebody like him, then why in the world would you really want to be the one leading the Florida search? Because that's the kind of demand they expect. An elite coach. Not a very easy one, but hear me out. If they set that trend and it happens early, the dominoes will fall from there. That means other guys like Matt Campbell are available. That means Jeff Brom is available. Maybe Brom goes to Penn State. Who knows? But there's still a lot of opportunities. And in my opinion, most guys that if they're even considering leaving, the Florida job would be top of the board for me. Like it's number one clear because the recruiting advantage there is sickening. Again, I think it's a top 5 job. And most people can laugh at that or be happy about it, whatever they want. But that job is just so easy in terms of recruiting. A dead fish could recruit to Florida. So speaking of, how about Fran Brown? Just throwing that out there. Could you imagine how good Fran is as a recruiter, what he would do at UF? And he could certainly throw it around. I talked about the history of Spurrier. That would be somebody they could get quicker. I know Syracuse fans are probably freaking out right now, but it's true. Freeman's not as likely playoff. Pretty good chance Notre Dame's going to be in the playoff. Same kind of deal with some of the other guys they're probably going to want. Like, they're probably not going to leave Eli Drinkwitz alone. They might make the playoff. Lane Kiffin, pretty good chance he's going to go to the playoff. Timing. And until Florida gets their guy, it's going to be hard for some other coaches other than maybe Penn State or other schools, from getting it done because they're going to want to probably take a swing at the UF job if they're going to make a move. Kiffin, let's go back to that for a second. If he did turn it down early and decide, you know what, my daughters are at school at Ole Miss, my ex-wife's moved back to Oxford, maybe that's the best way to go. I don't know. And he gets it done and out of the way. But if he doesn't and this drags on, it'll be very interesting for other coaches because they may want to move on. Timing. So for me, my tier 1 list, whether it's Florida or anybody else, this is the list I have. No particular order. Lane Kiffin, Marcus Freeman, Matt Campbell, Jeff Brom, Eli Drinkwitz, Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham. Those are the guys that I think are going to get calls from any P4 job. There's a few others pretty close. Shane Beamer, Fran Brown, Jed Fish, Manny Diaz, Brent Key at Georgia Tech. Those are the ones. Which ones do you have and why? Again, the timing of this is very important. Remember, no matter if you're a Gator fan, you hate the Gators, or it's Penn State or any other school, the coaches that are likely to be in the playoff or going into that final weekend, Thanksgiving weekend, and they don't know if their team's going to the playoff, that's almost impossible to hire them. But if you're the Gators, you got to try and make it work. That's going to set the market, and we're going to see how that works because this is going to be a massive year for coaching change. I still think that Florida State's job is going to come open. By the time I air this, he might have been fired or soon to be publicly now. Who knows? You're going to have possibly LSU. They've got 3 games left that they're very possibly going to lose. They got A&M, at Bama, and at Oklahoma. LSU fans are already mad they got 2 losses. They could lose any one of those. So the LSU job might open. There'd be a lot of interested candidates in that. Michigan State could come open. Jonathan Smith has really disappointed. There's a lot to still get to. And NC State, Dave Doran, lots of jobs. So how the Florida job winds down here over the next month or two, this is going to be really, really important. Thank you very much for checking out the Portal Podcast. We will see you again soon. Please like and subscribe.